Hello everyone and welcome back to Sudden Wealth. I hope you guys are doing very well. If you do enjoy the content, please consider dropping that like and subscribe. As you guys know, it's the only thing that I ask. So, in my previous video, let's cut right to the chase. My previous video, I mentioned was something going to happen in Iran, and was that going to be the big danger? If you've been following this channel for any length of time, as everybody was so worried about tariffs and the bond yields, I've been saying, no, you're looking at the wrong things, you're focusing on the wrong things. To me, the most concerning things are around Iran and Taiwan. I've been saying that in the middle of the tariff war, where everybody was obsessed with it. I've also mentioned, can it lead to short-term volatility and anxiety? Sure. Can it lead to short-term sell-offs and quite rapid ones? Yes. In the medium term to long term, what does it mean? Well, if there's conflict, you end up with money printing, budget deficits, and lowering of rates. So basically, same thing. I mean, this is much less relevant, I would say, than the Russia-Ukraine one. The reason is quite simple. Russia was supplying oil and gas to large portions of the planet, and Ukraine was the number one exporter of fertilizer for most of Europe and particularly Africa. So in that sense, you lose, basically the global economy lost one of the biggest agricultural players, Ukraine, and two of the biggest energy players, Russia and Ukraine. In the case of Iran, because they are so heavily sanctioned already, pretty much China takes almost all of their oil. So it's and Iran exports two things, oil and gas. So that's pretty much it. So I guess it will impact China more than others. But the knee-jerk reaction you have is higher oil prices, of course. Market starts to price in less oil in the market, plus potential further conflicts. I think what's going to happen with the market is something to the nature of every news that's come out as a less and less impact. This will happen also on the positive side. So, for example, when the trade deals will be signed, what you're going to see is the first ones will have a big impact. And then by the fifth or sixth one, it's going to have less and less impact until you have obviously something like China. Then by its magnitude, it becomes more relevant. But it's the same story, for example, in 2020 with the zombie virus. You remember that? Every time a news was coming out, the market was going to tank. And then the news actually got progressively worse, and the market tanked less. So basically what the market does, it adjusts for the future. So it starts trying to predict how this is going to resolve. And usually the market tends to predict some of the worst cases. And then what we end up finding out is that it's not as bad as people initially think. But once again, it was unfortunate that I made that video 2 days ago, and then that same night, everyone knows what happens. And I promise I don't have any connections anywhere. It's just, it's the same thing. I barely hear anybody talking about Taiwan, which scares me. See, if everyone is talking about Taiwan and everyone's obsessed with Taiwan, then I'm less concerned. Same thing with the tariffs. If everybody is, I cannot go on Twitter without the word tariff everywhere. Or if I go on Twitter and I cannot see anything but bond yields by people that don't even know how bonds trade, then I say, most likely it's not going to be this one. But when nobody's talking about the others, well, now that's a big of an issue. Bitcoin, it's at 105,000. Ethereum is staying above 2,500. Let's hope that lasts. Things have been escalating throughout the weekend. I mean, I'm not making judgments. Everybody has their own opinion. In my view, with my very limited knowledge, I don't see how Iran can win this, based on the fact that Israel is so superior by the air, but maybe, I mean, who knows, right? I'm not a military expert, so I'm not going to make any kind of comments on that side. But basically, I mean, I always think, well, if they can control the air, I mean, Iran imports almost everything in terms of food, and it's imported via 4 or 5 ports. So if you destroy those, right? I mean, same thing. I think you have one single facility produces 65% or 70% of the natural gas of the country. So what happens if that facility gets destroyed? What happens to your economy? Since you only sell oil and gas, that's the only thing you produce. I mean, I leave you to think about it. That's just my perspective with my limited knowledge. Maybe I'm missing a lot of things. I'm not an expert in this, so I'm not going to pretend here that I'm the super expert on military strategy and the economy of Iran. I know the basics, but that's about it. So I'll keep it there. Once again, I'm not making value judgments. I'm just saying, from an outsider looking in, this is what I see. As you guys know, I hate conflicts. I was hoping that this was not going to come to pass. However, I thought it was more likely than most people giving credit. And guess what? That was exactly what was happening. So it's a short-term move. Liquidity keeps on rising. So if you see, I mean, I think the S&P, and so they were down 1% at the end of the day, 1.5%, so it's not a big deal. I've heard people saying, oh, oil is, if they bomb the refineries of Iran, oil is going to be $200. No, Iran is a much less important player than Russia was. So no, it's not the same scale. It has to do with the end users, right? Everybody in Europe was using its oil and gas. But not everybody in the world is using Iran. So chill, let's hope that we can get somewhere in terms of de-escalation, a little bit like Pakistan and India happened. I hope, that's my hope. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just, I would be glad if it did. What can I say? I think, oh yeah, this is an important one I wanted to mention because this is very important. A lot of people is counting the months for May 2026. So a new Fed chairman comes in and basically stops being so political as Powell has been. Here is the little piece of insight that I'm going to give you. You don't have to wait for a Powell replacement. You just need to announce a new Fed. So basically, you just need to say, on May 2026, person A is going to be the Fed chairman or chairwoman. That's it. That's all you have to do. You just have to announce it. Why? As soon as you announce it, the market says, okay, Powell's not going to give any cuts. I get it. It's going to be political until he leaves office. I get it. But by May 2026, this person is going to come in and probably going to cut rates by 2%, like immediately, or 1%, whatever they're going to price in. Whatever they think is going to be. They say, oh, this guy is going to be basically a puppet from Trump. I mean, you fill in the narratives of the media. It's up to you. It's going to be something to the nature of this person is going to come in, is going to cut rates immediately. So as soon as we know who's going to be the Fed chairman or chairwoman, then the market will start pricing in the rate cuts, the aggressive rate cuts of 2026 today. So they will start positioning for it today. So when people say, oh, we need to wait until, no, we don't need to wait anything. You just need to give a clear information to the market in the sense of, oh, this guy's a super dove, like a dove on steroids. This guy's going to cut rates like a maniac. That's the whole information you need today, even if it's for something that's going to happen in 10, 11 months from now, because the market will start pricing in today. Be mindful of these kind of things because they're very important. So, I mean, I guess that's it. I mean, Bitcoin and crypto in general was was more resilient than that I expected. We also need to understand something. We've been relentlessly going up in markets, particularly the stock market. We need breathers. And sometimes when we need breathers, the market is looking for something to convince them to sell. Things like what just happened. So what I'm trying to say here is, I'm not saying, so for example, I made also a video a couple of days ago. I said, please be mindful. We're going to have pullbacks. We're going to have some breather. We've done nothing but gone up throughout this time period. We need some consolidation. We need some, gathering of energy again. We need some of this. I'm not sure what's going to happen, but I know that something's going to happen to lead to some sort of a pullback. Now, of course, I was not talking about this in specific, and I'm not trying to say, oh yeah, because the market needed a pullback, so they decided to do this on this date on purpose. No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, when you're starting to price in for perfection again, which is what was happening, when you start to feel all the juices from liquidity going up, which is still going up, by the way, at some point you need to stop a little bit. Now, what's going to cause the stoppage? I don't know. You fill in the blanks, right? I mean, maybe Powell says something. Maybe you have a situation like this. Maybe, I don't know, Trump loses something in court. Maybe the ECB, the European Union announces they are launching a package of counter tariff measures to the US. I don't know. I mean, you fill in the gap what's going to be. But what I'm trying to say is, when the market is starting to price in perfection, something will drag it down. That's my point. And also, so far, it's not been anything really that crazy. With that, thank you very much for your support. If you have family or friends in the middle of this conflict, I wish you the best of luck, and I wish them that they're safe and sound, and I wish that this can end in peaceful resolution as soon as possible, as for all the other conflicts as well. And with that, don't forget, like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one.